Settle in, everyone. Today, we are going to dive into the ultimate explainer on how humanity conquered our planet's most intimidating geographic barrier, the ocean. Long before we had paved roads connecting vast nations, and centuries before airplanes conquered the skies, humanity ruled the waves. Ships literally changed the world forever, and understanding their evolution is absolutely vital to understanding our own history. So, how exactly did our ancestors go from clinging to floating logs in a river to engineering skyscraper-sized nuclear-powered megaships? It's a wild journey of human ambition. Let's get right into it and discover how these vessels became the primary catalyst for global connection, trade, warfare, and modern civilization. Here is our syllabus for today's lecture. We'll start with conquering the early oceans, move into warships and steam power, discuss floating cities and tragedies, examine the container shipping miracle, and finally look at the future of smart ships. Let's kick things off with part 1, conquering the early oceans, from ancient rivers to global highways. Picture this. It's over 10,000 years ago, long before any recorded history. Humans desperately needed a way to cross rivers, fish in deeper waters, and discover new lands. So they started with primitive but brilliant engineering. First, they just tied logs together into simple rafts. Then, they got creative by stretching animal skins over wooden frames, and eventually weaving reeds into vessels. These foundational steps allowed ancient civilizations like Egypt to master river transportation on the Nile. By adding sails and oars to large wooden boats, they did something truly revolutionary. For the absolute first time, humans learned to harness the wind for power. Fast forward to the 15th century, and European kingdoms kick off a bold new era, the Age of Sail. This era was defined by the development of incredibly fast, strong, ocean-crossing sailing ships. Think caravels and galleons. These weren't your ancient riverboats anymore. They were heavy-duty vessels built explicitly to push past known barriers and survive the violent, totally unpredictable environment of the open ocean. Suddenly, the oceans weren't terrifying barriers. They were global highways. In 1492, Columbus crosses the Atlantic. By 1498, Vasco da Gama reaches India by sea. And by 1522, Magellan's expedition pulls off the ultimate flex by circling the entire Earth. This massive maritime expansion sparked early global migration patterns and connected incredibly diverse cultures for the very first time. Trade networks exploded, and global empires grew richer than anyone had ever imagined. But as we know from history, with unprecedented wealth comes serious conflict. That brings us to part 2, warships and steam power, the fight for the seas and the industrial leap. By the 1600s, those peaceful trade routes turned into heavily contested, floating battlegrounds. Ships evolved into deadly war machines, massive wooden vessels carrying dozens of heavy cannons, effectively acting as floating fortresses. There's a quote that perfectly captures this era: "Whoever controlled the oceans controlled the world." And it was true. Sea battles directly dictated the rise and fall of major global empires. Take the British Royal Navy, for example. They used their overwhelming fleets of wooden warships to crush rival empires, protect their merchant ships from pirates, and achieve an unprecedented level of world dominance. But then the 1800s hit. The Industrial Revolution reached the ocean, and the paradigm completely flipped. For millennia, we relied on wooden sailing ships that were entirely vulnerable to the whims of the wind. Suddenly, we transitioned to heavy iron and steel steamships. This engineering leap was absolutely monumental. These steam-powered machines were faster, hauled enormous amounts of cargo, and best of all, they moved independently of the wind. The age of wood and sail was forced to step aside for the age of iron and coal. As engineering pushed new boundaries, human ambition took over. Welcome to Part 3, Floating Cities and Tragedies, the Golden Age of Ocean Liners. By the early 20th century, ships weren't just meant for hauling cargo or fighting wars. They became the ultimate symbols of human luxury, functioning as opulent floating cities. But this golden era was also marked by profound hubris. The RMS Titanic was famously believed to be completely unsinkable. Tragically, in April 1912, it struck an iceberg in the freezing Atlantic. Because of supreme overconfidence and inadequate safety preparations, over 1,500 lives were lost in a single terrifying night. That horrific disaster shocked the entire world to its core, but it served as a critical global wake-up call. It exposed massive flaws in how we operated at sea and forced immediate permanent improvements to worldwide maritime safety standards. Things we take for granted today, like guaranteeing lifeboats for all passengers and establishing constant 24/7 radio watches, came directly from the lessons learned that night. While passenger safety was finally improving, the world was simultaneously gearing up for conflict. During the World Wars, naval engineering scaled up at a terrifying pace. In the 1910s, you had battleships equipped with long-range guns destroying fleets from miles away. By the 1940s, stealth submarines were silently attacking from beneath the waves. And by the 1950s, we saw the rise of massive aircraft carriers acting as revolutionary floating air bases. Sea power unequivocally became one of the most critical factors in modern warfare. Following the devastation of World War II, the focus on the seas shifted back to commerce. That brings us to part 4, the container shipping miracle, revolutionizing the global economy. This era birthed the modern global economy, and it did it through one brilliantly simple idea: the standardized shipping container. Suddenly, you could pack cargo once, move it onto a truck, transfer it to a train, and then load it onto a ship without ever unpacking it. This standardization drastically lowered loading times and slashed transport costs, which sparked unprecedented industrial growth worldwide. Want to know the impact? A staggering 90% of all world trade today travels by sea. The smartphone in your pocket, the car in your driveway, the food in your pantry, almost all of it depends entirely on giant cargo ships relentlessly crossing the oceans every single day. To handle this immense demand, today's ships have become absolute engineering marvels. Just contrast the early wooden construction techniques we talked about earlier with today's sophisticated steel and nuclear engineering methods. Modern cruise ships safely carry entire cities of passengers. Our aircraft carriers utilize complex nuclear power, allowing them to operate for decades without ever needing to refuel. And our cargo ships have a capacity that rivals the length of modern skyscrapers. They are quite literally the steel backbone of the global economy. And you definitely can't steer a skyscraper-sized vessel with just a wooden wheel and a spyglass. We have completely abandoned the basic sail navigation of the past, which relied heavily on visual cues and rudimentary tools. To safely guide these modern behemoths, we utilize incredibly complex satellite guidance systems, advanced radar, and even artificial intelligence to monitor weather patterns and optimize routes with absolute pinpoint precision. Which brings us to our final chapter. Part 5, the future of smart ships, automation and clean energy. The next great maritime revolution is already underway. We are radically changing modern ship design by shifting the industry away from fossil fuels and steering toward clean energy. Engineers are actively building and testing electric-powered vessels and utilizing hydrogen fuel technology. The ultimate goal? Faster transportation with significantly less overall pollution. On top of that, we are on the brink of fully automated, AI-controlled cargo ships. Right now, the industry is balancing the amazing environmental and efficiency benefits of these technologies with the highly complex challenge of safely navigating massive ships across unpredictable oceans entirely without human crews. But as we look back on everything we've covered in today's lecture, there is a beautiful constant. Whether it is a primitive woven reed raft floating down the Nile, or a highly advanced, nuclear-powered AI ship carrier crossing the Pacific, ships have always existed to serve the exact same core purpose. They connect diverse cultures, facilitate trade and ideas, and ultimately shape human progress. So, class, as humanity continues to explore the oceans and engineers build the breathtaking future of maritime travel, I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. From early caravels to the Titanic to modern nuclear carriers, which vessel from this 10,000-year history stands out to you as the most legendary? Think about it and keep exploring.